Today is day 26 of the Karen Read trial. I'm going to give you my daily recap. I have all of my notes ready to go because today was another extremely long and boring day. I feel like half of today was the Commonwealth trying to present their case, and then the other half was them trying to discredit the defense's theories. We started off the day with Mass State Trooper Joseph Paul back on the stand. He did the majority of his testimony on Friday, and Adam Lally just wrapped up a little bit more of his questioning. He is being questioned specifically today about exactly how he believes John O'Keefe died. And so he's the accident reconstructionist. He did all kinds of tests on the car, and he claims that he came to all of these conclusions and wrote these reports based on his own findings and his time with Karen Read's vehicle. We get into the cross-examination, and it's going to be done by Alan Jackson. On Friday, we also heard a little bit of questioning without the jury present, and Alan Jackson is a shark in this moment, and Trooper Paul stands no chance. He was by far the most nervous witness that we have seen on the stand this whole trial. He was really fumbling over his words. He could barely form a sentence. It sounded like he had marshmallows in his mouth a little bit, and the judge kept asking him to repeat himself or slow down and speak up. He really was just very uncomfortable. I felt uncomfortable just watching him. Alan Jackson starts off by questioning his expertise. He wants to know, where did you get this training as an accident reconstructionist? And we learn that he has an associate's degree in something criminal law related, I believe. And he has all of his experience based on a few courses that he's taken. I think Jackson really hammered it in that he is not an expert. He doesn't understand kinetics, physics, or simple math, it really sounded like. Alan Jackson pulls up a few of the state's exhibits that they published before, and this was created by Trooper Paul, first of all, and it shows you the pedestrian's final rest. Halfway through his testimony, he tells you that this was marked by the middle of John O'Keefe's body, middle point of mass, I think it was. And you see some of the red plastic here, which I believe he said was about 7 to 12 feet away from John O'Keefe's final rest. Then he pulls up this picture that the Commonwealth has entered into evidence, and he says, "Have you ever seen this?" And he says, "No." When they zoom in right here, it's clearly a piece of plastic right in front of the fire hydrant. He goes back to the diagram, and there's no plastic listed over here by the fire hydrant, and he agrees that it's about 30 feet away from the final rest. So he asks, does this change the point of impact? Because he is alleging point of impact was essentially right here, reversed, backed into him, and he flew that way. So how next to the fire hydrant is there a piece of plastic debris now? He kind of goes back and forth about, I feel like he was changing some of the things that he said on Friday, but if he ends up saying that the area of impact is along the roadway, he doesn't say exactly where it was. Alan Jackson wants to know how Trooper Paul formulated his opinions and created that diagram. There were no crime scene photos with John O'Keefe's body in the snow. And he says that, I think it was Lieutenant Gallagher, potentially, from the Canton PD, told him where the body was, but Gallagher never saw either with his own two eyes, so it was just kind of relayed from EMT. So it was essentially a guesstimate of where the body was. In that diagram, it says that John O'Keefe's body was about 7 feet from the roadway, but in all of the reports, it says 15 to 20 feet from the roadway, and he asks, does this change your diagram or your opinions on anything? And he says, no, it's just the path of debris is linear, and you never really get a clear answer on that. He found out where the plastic pieces were from Lieutenant Tully, and that's where he put them in the diagram, but Tully never measured or anything like that. The report doesn't really state exactly where they were found. The shoe was 9 feet away. The glass cup was about 1 foot away from John O'Keefe's final resting place. The plastic was 7 to 12 feet away, and they're, like I said, measuring from the center of mass. So then we get into questioning by Alan Jackson about if he was hit, then any projectile that is on that he's holding or that he has, that would have gone flying, but the glass ends up just 1 foot away from him. We start talking about quite a bit of things related to physics. I kind of zoned out a little bit. I think I was walking to the park at this point. And he says he didn't do certain calculations because John O'Keefe was sideswiped and not projected forward. So if John O'Keefe was standing here and the car like hit him head on, then he would have just flown forward. But because he was sideswiped and hit from the side, his body does a counterclockwise rotation, is what he's alleging. We talk a little bit more about the injuries to John O'Keefe and his arm area, and he says there were injuries to his upper arm. His shoulder was not broken. He had no fractures. He had no bruising. He just had those abrasion, scratch, bite marks. And he says he has no explanation for that. Our next witness is Ian Whiffen. He is from the UK. He currently lives in Canada. He works for Celebrate. He has done significant amount of training in forensic something or other, but he's an expert from Celebrate. Celebrate is used to gain access to people's devices, to extract data and examine it. It creates a report for the investigators to go off of. There was a statement that he said that I thought was really interesting. Adam Lally asked him how he came to learn about the case, and he says somebody within Celebrate reached out regarding a timestamp on a web history artifact at 2:27 a.m., and it did not make sense to the investigators. So what it sounds like a little bit to me is like they couldn't make sense of the search at 2:27, so now they're trying to find out a way to make it fit their theory. It will be really interesting if any of the jury or anyone else caught that, but it sounded, the way he worded it, saying it did not make sense to investigators, it's not really like for them to make sense of. It's either it happened and it was deleted or it didn't happen. And just a random question I have, how do you delete something that was never searched? If it was deleted at 2:27, then it was searched. So that's what I don't understand either. Okay, so this is the part that I was super confused on too, because he's confirmed the Google search of Hoslong to die in the cold at 2:27 a.m. and then at 6:23 another variation of it, and at 6:24 another version of that. He says then we see the 2:27 one is deleted from the Celebrate extraction. Here's the report that says it was searched 2:27 and 40 seconds a.m. deleted. This is admitted into evidence. How do you delete something that was not searched? I'm just baffled on that. Lots more of exhibits entered. I felt like Adam Lally was just trying to confuse the jury, because if the jury is confused about this, then maybe they just stick with the final point that he makes. David Yannetti did the cross-examination, and then Lally comes back up for some redirect, and from this question, he says, no doubt the only two searches were at 6:23 a.m. and 6:24 a.m., meaning there was nothing at 2:27, and that is what the jury is left with in their head. The next witness is Trooper Nicholas Garino. He works for the Mass State Police, and he is in the detective unit. He works with cell phone forensics, and he's trained in Celebrate. He took the hard drives from John O'Keefe's computer, their kid's computer. He took the center console out of Karen Read's car, and he evaluated Karen and John's phones. We learned that one of the computers was really never used. It was just like the kid's computer. The other computer was John O'Keefe's computer, and it didn't have any access to Ring on there, so that kind of eliminates everything about Karen going on his computer and deleting the Ring footage. On August 16, 2022, they finally get access to Karen Read's personal cell phone, and this is where they start to get like her text messages and her Facebook messages, her Google searches, everything like that. The biggest part of the day was seeing the Facebook messages between John and Karen, and it really puts us in the frame of mind that morning before Karen supposedly killed John that night. Karen Read wrote, I feel pretty shitty about how this morning went down. I know you said sorry, but it really stung, especially when I've been trying really hard lately. I feel like a loser turning around and just coming back over everything you said. That was at 2:16 p.m. At 2:26 p.m., John O'Keefe says, things haven't been great for us for a while. Ever consider that? That's the message right there. The messages keep going back and forth. There's the blizzard that night. And then we learn after she dropped off John O'Keefe, there were a series of phone calls between her just basically trying to get a hold of John after she dropped him off. A little difficult to see. But here at 12:55 a.m. on January 29th, she says, I'm going home. At 1:02 a.m., your kids are clucking alone. I'm back in Mansfield. Your kids are home alone. We knew she wasn't in Mansfield based on our location data, but what was she trying to gaslight him for? I don't know what's going on.